Today, Wednesday, could be a huge day in the history of college athletics. To the courts.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good morning, and thank you for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, where right now new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins.
All right, welcome in. It is Wednesday. Mitch Sherman from The Athletic, Connor Happer of 1620 The Zone with you. Thank you for joining us on the Locked On Nebraska podcast. To start off, just a little behind the scenes, like how the sausage is made moment as it relates to this podcast. We don't generally like to lead things off by talking about the House settlement or revenue sharing, which is part of the House settlement. Yeah. Really anything having to do with lawsuits, the NCAA, because we, as the hosts of this show, want to talk about things that matter to you, that you're thinking about. Well, today you should be thinking about this. If you follow college sports, if you follow Nebraska football, the House versus NCAA case has existed in the court system, the United States court system, since 2020, and it might come to an end today if the judge in California approves the settlement terms proposed by leaders in college sports. The leaders in college sports, the defendants in this case, are the NCAA and the major college conferences. Still with me? If you've left, then I guess I'm no longer talking to you.
My eyes have glazed over. No, I think this is really important.
It could end. It could be over today. Revenue sharing could actually be here.
Well, I think there's another thing too. Like people, as we go down the line and sort of explaining this thing, like I think people who listen and hear and tune into this part of college football, which is a small portion, I think they've probably heard this now like a billion times. They're like, "Oh, today is a big day." Well, that's because we've successfully, we meaning the people in college football, have kicked the can down the road like 400 times on this, and now it feels like we're at an impasse. It either happens or it doesn't, and that's why today's significant.
Yeah. So 2 weeks ago, the judge told the NCAA and the leaders in college sports and their lawyers to fix part of the settlement. She likes the settlement. It's mostly good, but the judge did not like the part of the settlement that said you could be cut as a result of the terms of the proposal, which include roster limits, as we know. In football, the roster limit is 105. That matters a lot more to Nebraska than at some other programs because Nebraska sits at about 125 after it adds a punter, which is still to come here in this offseason. So 2 weeks ago, the lawyers went back to the drawing board, and today is the deadline. It seems as if the judge is going to get something from the NCAA today. They're filing it in court. And if it doesn't meet her requirements, if it doesn't meet her standard, then it's over. She could deny the settlement. I don't think it can be kicked down the road a whole lot more. And if they deny the settlement, then this thing is going to trial, which could drag on for years and years and cost the NCAA billions more than it's already agreeing to pay. So the main point of the House settlement, we talk about roster limits a lot. We talk about revenue sharing a lot, and revenue sharing is a huge piece of the settlement. Nebraska and other institutions will have $20 million plus at their disposal to pay athletes in the 2025-2026 academic year if the settlement is approved today or very soon. But a huge part is $3 billion with a B, being made available to former student athletes dating back over the past decade or so who are being paid like back pay damages for NIL money that they did not receive. So that's all on the line. If it goes to trial, who knows? those numbers could change dramatically, and they're probably not going down. They're going up.
100%. And that's the reason why this exists. That's the reason why the settlement exists. The settlement is a way for the NCAA, frankly, to stay alive. Because if it goes to trial, they not only lose, a bunch of money, trying to patch together court case and stuff like that, but they also lose the case, right? They're going to lose, which would effectively end the NCAA. If it turned out the way that everybody thinks it would turn out. So I think this is a way to sort of patch this, and there's no doubt the NCAA has to pay big time, and it's going to take on a completely different look. But at least the NCAA is going to have some say in the future of college athletics if indeed this passes. And so that's what happens if not. It's not like you go back. I suppose there's a lot of different possibilities of what could happen after today, but maybe the lawsuit or the settlement is thrown out the window again, and then they go back, and then we try to redo this thing, and it takes multiple years, or they go to trial, and I just think there's a lot of possibilities, and the best one for everyone, because we've been preparing for this for a long time now, is to actually get this thing settled. But the people weren't budging very much on these roster limits and how they look, and the judge wasn't either. So we're in an interesting place,
which is such a bizarre thing, because the roster limits are down the line on what is important about the settlement, or what really matters. Like the roster limits are like a throw-in kind of. And they're going to get to a certain number regardless. Everyone agrees. The judge even wants the roster limits, like in football, to get to 105. She just doesn't want to kick everybody out right away. And there was some reporting on Monday. One of the lawyers for the NCAA told the Associated Press that the change to the proposal over the past 2 weeks would involve new language that allowed athletes who objected to the initial proposal, so athletes who objected to the 105 in football, it would give them a spot. And this lawyer said there were several dozen athletes who objected. You're really going to go back to the judge with that? Like, I kind of don't believe that. I kind of think that something got lost in translation, and they're not going to risk ruining the entire case over this. Just let the people have their spots. If you're on the Nebraska football team and the Huskers are 15 spots over, let those people stay until their eligibility is expired. It's only going to be a few years, and then they can get down to 105. But it doesn't seem like the defendants here, based on what was said Monday, want to go all in that. And some of it could be that the schools really don't want to go all in that. It's not just the lawyers. The schools themselves a lot of schools would like to be at 105 right now, because that means they pay less. If you're in roster spot 106 to 115, and the school is going to pay you, it's going to cost them more. Yeah. So we'll see. 24 hours from now, we should have a better idea, or 12 hours from now, we should have a better idea. But Connor, what do you think the main thing is in how what happens today impacts Matt Rule, Troy Dannon, in Nebraska?
My mind goes to the roster limits first, just because of those conversations that they would have to have. I mean, Nebraska is one of the very few places in the country that would actually have to make immediate cuts, or immediate quote unquote cuts for this. So we'll see what that actually looks like in the shape of it. So that's in the immediate. But we mentioned this on an on an earlier podcast, Mitch. This is about the future of college football or college athletics. This is about the next 10, 15, and 20 years. And so you don't really know what it looks like in practice until it actually is in practice. I mean, the bold things that stand out is revenue sharing, roster limits, and I guess those the bold type letters.
Right.
And the revenue sharing is a piece that Nebraska is prepared for. And they have $20.5 million set aside, and I think they have a really good plan on how they're going to allocate that money into which teams and to which players and value and things like that. They promoted a couple of lawyers within their athletic department, the other day. So yeah, I think Nebraska's pretty well prepared on that front. It's, so I think you'll see the remnants of this once it actually goes into practice.
I don't expect this to happen, but I think we can safely say if the judge is not satisfied with the amendment to the proposal and denies the settlement and it goes to trial, you're talking about complete chaos in the short term in college sports and what's going on this summer. There would have to be some way that the NCAA would scramble and try to allow revenue sharing to happen anyway. They could just throw out their bylaws entirely and say, yeah, you can just go ahead and pay athletes. I don't know how they would institute a cap on it at that point, but for the sake of everyone's sanity, it would be a good idea if the NCAA does all that is needed in order to pacify Judge Wilkin here and allow her to be in a position, which she wants to do, to approve this settlement. And it could happen today. So I wrote on The Athletic, the column is up this morning, Wednesday morning, about Matt Rule and about Troy Dannon and how they have navigated Nebraska through this situation in a way that is better than any of their predecessors over the last 20 to 25 years could have done. Nebraska has the leadership in place and the right mindset within the department to come out of this thing, as long as everybody gets their stuff together in court today, to come out of this thing looking pretty good. And that just hasn't been the case for Nebraska when it came to much less complex situations for a long time.
Yeah, they have a plan. That's what I've always liked about what Danon's brought to the table. All right, quick time out here on the show. We'll be back. Talk about a baseball game in Lincoln last night after this.
A moment right now to tell you about Upwork, because scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. And with Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing development, design, and more, experts who are ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you as a business owner need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. If you need help with a marketing campaign, Upwork can help connect you with a freelance expert who delivers incredible results. Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork allows you to find affordable top-tier freelancers to scale your business efficiently. So visit Upwork.com right now. Post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today.
All right, welcome back. Mitch Sherman, Connor Happer with you. Get your questions in for the mailbag show coming up on Friday.
That's right.
I'm excited to see what that looks like, because partly because of this. Last night in Lincoln, there was a baseball game between Creighton and Nebraska. Creighton won. Full disclosure, I do the radio play-by-play for Creighton baseball. And my mentions were a disaster, just a disaster. In fact, the most recent tweet that I've got, Mitch, is actually it was regarding. It says Mitch carries locked on, FYI, which I thought that was a good one.
Were you on the call last night? Sorry, I didn't listen to. Yeah,
I was. Yeah.
Okay, I'm glad that you saw this up close and personal, because I turned it off when it was 6-0 Jays. Nothing against the Jays. I mean, hey, no, I'm good with the Jays. But I wanted to watch the Royals and the White Sox, which turned out to be just a very pleasant, a very pleasant endeavor.
Great White
Sox. I was following.
Game.
I was. If you didn't see it, the White Sox second baseman took a foul ball off the head in the 9th inning, which allowed the Royals to walk them off. I was following along the Nebraska Creighton game, and it kept getting closer after the 6-0 start that put Creighton ahead. And then Creighton went ahead 8-4 in the top of the ninth, and it looked like there was no chance for Nebraska. So when the Royals game ended, I flipped it over to BTN Plus, and it was 8-7, and Nebraska had runners on the corners. And the best part of the lineup at the plate against a Creighton reliever who appeared to be laboring. And he struck out Caden Brumbaugh and the hottest hitter in the month of May ever, Gabe Swanson, who had homered in the previous inning to end the game and leave the tying run at third base. So that to me, and you can speak better to this since you were at the game and saw it all, that to me was an encapsulation of what Nebraska baseball was on Tuesday night.
Yeah, it's just a lot of, and not that these games traditionally aren't the cleanest played. I mean, I think we're dealing with two, okay teams here. I think Creighton is going to have a chance to do some things with the way that the rest of their schedule sets up. Nebraska is going to be scratching and clawing their way to get into the Big Ten tournament, and they need a series win this weekend. But it's not always clean. You got some questionable pitching and stuff like that. But it's just Nebraska, like the mental errors and the physical errors really just piled up on them. I mean, the one inning where it all unraveled for them, it wasn't just the one, by the way, but the notable one, they walked 3 in a row, and then a comebacker to the pitcher that was thrown wide to the plate. It would have been a double play to end the inning. And, Creighton ended up getting a few more runs out of that, 4 in the inning. A bad base running blunder, really 2. They could have had an advance there to get runners on second and third and get the winning run to second in the ninth after, kind of piling up all these hits and finally getting hot. And that's a really good reliever that Nebraska did that to in the ninth. I mean, Garrett Langrel is probably the best that Creighton's had out of the back end of the bullpen in a little while now.
He's got some hair, man.
Yeah, he's got some swag too. And so the other thing that happened after the game, or in the immediate aftermath, is that Langrel is he runs a little hot. He's emotional, and he's got some hair, and he leaves the tying run on third base, and he strikes out Gabe Swanson. And then he looks over to the Nebraska dugout and gives him the thumbs down. He goes.
Oh, I didn't see that. So I thought they were going to celebrate more, and it looked like just relief when Langrel walked off the mound after striking out Gabe Swanson.
Yeah,
I thought there were going to be big fist pumps or something, like the team rushing on the field, not a dog pile, but you just beat. It was an emotional game for sure, but it looked to me like it was like, whew, he didn't really celebrate, but he gave a thumbs down to.
So yeah, he's done it a couple times this year. He'll look and he'll do the thumbs up, and then he'll kind of go.
Okay, all right.
And then Creighton so Nebraska takes pictures after all of their wins.
Yep.
Creighton decided to take a picture on the field.
Fair.
And I mean, obviously I'm understandably I'm very biased in this situation, but I think this is just part of the deal, man. It's these two teams, we've talked about it. They don't really like each other. And they're both at pivotal points of their season where the emotions are sort of boiling. So yeah, I love it. I love that stuff.
It was Ed Service's last time at Haymarket Park.
Yep.
As the Creighton coach. Like, Creighton deserved to take a picture after that win, whether Nebraska had been doing that for a couple years or not. I always thought that, like, my first reaction when I saw that Nebraska started taking pictures after wins, home and away last year,
He's gonna come back and get them.
Yeah, this is not a great idea. Like, it's cool for you and your team, but like the team picture after every win, like, somebody's going to take offense to that. That's worse to me than like standing on the 50-yard line before a game.
Ooh, that's a whole debate show that we could do.
Do you take a picture? Do you take a picture on your opponent's field after beating them? Like, that can be viewed as offensive. I get it.
Yeah, I think more so for Creighton, it was just like they do this all the time, so it'd be funny to dunk on them. Like it's a weird thing that they do, so let's do it on their field, and we don't have to see them again for another year. So
any opportunity that Creighton gets to dunk on Nebraska, it's going to happen.
Absolutely, both of them.
and vice versa.
There's no
But
doubt.
Yeah.
So-
So Nebraska's 50 games into this season now. They'll play the 50th game of the year on Friday. And this is it. Like, this is what you saw on Tuesday night. That's Nebraska. Base running errors, defensive breakdowns, too many walks in the wrong situation. And then they tease you and they bring you back in, and they've got this talent and they can make a run at the end of a game. But it doesn't need to be like that if they played clean baseball. Like, I'm not saying that Nebraska's like on a different level than Creighton. Creighton's 32-13. Like, is that correct? They're having a very good season.
That's right.
But Nebraska, like, if it just plays clean, it's probably good enough to win that game and win the season series. But it didn't happen, and that's been the story with Nebraska baseball here. They're a very frustrating program to watch right now, having started the year in the national rankings and fighting here as we move toward mid-May to make the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah, big picture. I guess we have the hindsight of this now. Last thing before we take a break here, like, I don't know what you just said at the end there. I can't get out of my head. They had some expectations coming into the year, but when we talk about college baseball and like the preseason, polls, it's just all based off of last year because nobody knows what's gonna, like you're just going off of reputation. And so Nebraska, winners of the Big Ten tournament last year, I think they were picked toward the top of the league, and it's like, okay. And now they're not, and they're fighting and scratching and clawing their way to get into Omaha, into the Big Ten tournament. And, it feels like they felt like they were supposed to be better internally all year long. But I look at this team and I'm like, yeah, I don't know. It's when you start piling up all these mistakes and miscues and errors and stuff like that, like maybe you are kind of right where you should be. Like they've gotten what, and they've had a couple injuries and stuff like that as well. Yeah. They've messed with their offense and the way that they're doing that whole thing. So I don't know, but I kind of feel like they're right where, right where maybe
they deserve to be. They're where they deserve to be based on how they've played. I mean, the Mason McConaughey loss was it took a lot of air out of them, but they had already done some things at that point that made them look like kind of an inefficient operation. So Michigan comes in this weekend, another opportunity for Nebraska. They kind of live on the edge, and it's despite what happened on Tuesday night, it's a big weekend at Haymarket Park. By the way, is Michigan's coach going to be there for the series this weekend?
Oh yes, I don't think Tracy. I don't think Tracy Smith is suspending himself. He's still the coach up there, right?
The former Indiana coach.
Yeah, I think so.
Right. Yeah. Michigan baseball coach. Michigan lost Eric Backage. He went to Clemson.
Yeah, Tracy Smith. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. He's coming. I was wondering if maybe Michigan just had decided it wasn't going to bring its head coaches to all competitions in Lincoln.
Nice. Direct your hate at Michigan, not Connor Happer. Nebraska fan.
All right, let's come back and do some news and notes on a Wednesday with the Locked On Nebraska podcast. That's next.
But first, a word from the FanDuel Sportsbook, where the NBA playoffs are definitely in full swing, and every night is delivering highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't miss moments, and apparently upsets as well. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and during the game with live betting, with player props, performance trends, same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. 2 game twos with the Knicks and the Celtics tonight, and the Thunder and the Nuggets, both of which were upsets in game 1. How about this coming back? Boston is a 10.5-point favorite to take game 2, and Oklahoma City is an 11-point favorite to take game 2. So the top seeds are favorites on both sides there. Maybe you like the underdogs tonight to steal another one on the road. Whichever way you want to play it, it's all up to you. And you can find it on the FanDuel Sportsbook. If you got a read on who's heating up, why not back it up with the same game parlay that's there for you as well. How about $200 in bonus bets? Let's throw that your way. That would add to the excitement if that first $5 bet hits. If you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com, place that first $5 bet. And if it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA.
All right, welcome back. We are into the final segment of this episode of the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Thanks for joining us. Mitch Sherman, Connor Happer with you. So Akron football is ineligible for the postseason in 2025 because of its poor APR scores. This was revealed on Tuesday. Yeah, big impact here on the Nebraska schedule. The Zips will play at Nebraska in week 2. They will be hopeless, playing for nothing, no bowl game in the future for Akron. This is Nebraska's home opener, weather permitting.
Weather permitting. Good note. People forget about 2018. I didn't know that this could happen anymore. Surely, like I didn't know that this could happen. So I guess this is the first time that a team has been ineligible for postseason play due to academic performance in like more than a decade. Like every team has passed the smell test. There's 130 of them every single year in major college football, and over 10, more than 10 years now, every single one of them has passed, except for 2025 or 2024 Akron, I guess. So,
there are some fun things that the Nebraska students could probably do in the stands on that Saturday to rub that in the face of the Zips.
Yeah, I love that. Whatever happened to that? That's when we used to really, college. That's when college sports were great. People were making signs about how dumb the kids were in school and stuff like that. Like now it's all about
Can we get back to that, please?
Yeah, now it's all about money and cars and Instagram followers and girlfriends and stuff like that. Like, let's say, hey, you failed school. Like, that's a great sign.
Mm-hmm. You got it. It's right there in front of you. Red meat with Akron coming in on September 13th. No, it's September 6th. I apologize for that. Right after the opener in Kansas City, September 13th. You can't forget. That's Houston Christian. Huge game.
People forget.
Taylor Lewan of Bussin' with the Boys. I don't know how this got into our news and notes, but it's here. He believes that Nebraska's block and helmet is all wrong. Does not have the right presentation. Do you want the N on Nebraska's helmet to be modernized?
He doesn't like the skinny N. The skinny N.
Sorry, the skinny N. I called it block, but the one that's on the helmet,
If they if they ever put the block in on the helmet, I'm done. I'm out.
Right, the block in. I spoke incorrectly in saying the block in. But right, the one that's on the helmet, he doesn't like that.
He said he was looking at the helmet and he was like, "This, I don't. You got to do something. You got to modernize it." I don't think so. Which is so crazy coming from a guy who went to Michigan. They have the oldest school helmets in the game with the wings. Like it's an iconic helmet. Maybe Will Compton should go up there and hold the helmet. It's like, see this? I don't know. This just isn't really working for me.
Right. I don't like this. What are these colors? What is this? What is this? I think he did this entirely just because it would create a viral moment on social media, and it would get people talking. How Nebraska fans are going to react to that, and they don't like it. And I don't think it's worth talking about anymore. On Monday, Troy Dannon was named to the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. And then on Tuesday, as you mentioned earlier, he promoted 2 administrators at the school to associate AD positions. Audrey Polt is now, I believe she was working just in administration at the university. She's now associate AD for legal affairs. And then Jonathan Bateman, who's been important in Nebraska's NIL workings, dealings, does a lot to coordinate with 1890, associate AD in charge of administration. Both have law degrees. So Nebraska's beefing up its lawyers. Maybe not so coincidentally as we come to the edge of the cliff on the day before revenue sharing could be a real thing.
Most certainly not coincidentally. Yeah, no, not at all.
Okay. And then one more. We'll finish with this. The Big Ten made $928 million in revenue, an all-time high in the 2023-24 academic year, which ended last June. So we're working on the 24-25 academic year right now. Those are according to tax records obtained by my coworker, Scott Docterman. I don't know if he was like rooting around in the vaults of the Big Ten, but he came out with these numbers. It means that every school that receives a full share of Big Ten revenues got 61.5 to 63.5 million in the last year. That's more than SEC schools received, and that number should be on the order of about 10 million additional dollars in the 24-25 calendar year, so fiscal year. So Nebraska and its colleagues, or its fellow athletic departments, are bathing in money as we speak.
That's almost $1 billion. I mean, that's a lot of money, Mitch. That was the first year that CBS and NBC came on board with the media rights deal.
Yes.
And it went up by $48 million from fiscal year 2023. With that being said, the league expenses grew to $942 million, which is amazing.
The league is not a profitable venture on its own, but I don't really know why that matters. It has like 200 million plus money in the bank. So yeah, you don't want the league to go bankrupt, but if they're getting 900 plus million or $1 billion in revenues here in the next year, then everything's just fine within the schools that are getting paid out.
You could operate at a shortfall when you're making almost $1 billion and be okay. That's okay, and that's what the Big Ten is going to do.
All right, lots of money for the Big Ten, lots of money for Nebraska. I think that's about it. Got anything else want to discuss?
I don't think so. Not off the top of my head. No. Okay. I will end up talking about Taylor Lewan, talking about the N for probably at least 10 to 15 minutes of my show today. So I'm excited about that.
I look forward to it. I'll be on your show today, so that can come up in our conversation.
Fantastic.
Again. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen today. For your second listen, go check out Locked On NFL Draft with Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez. They are going over the results of the draft, telling you what players who you want to follow need to do to make it work at the next level. Get the latest news every day. Find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts.